Now please welcome to the stage Professor in the Department of Human-Centered Design and Engineering at the University of Washington and the Director of NSF SECURE Center, Dr. Beth Kolko.
Kevin, if there's another 50 people with badges, I don't know where you're going to fit them. The right problem to have, absolutely. So good morning, howdy. So it is a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Kevin and the ASCE organizing committee for this opportunity to share what the Secure Center has been building over the past year and a half. So I'm going to assume that most of you are familiar with the Secure project. We just heard from Rebecca Kaiser and the center itself. So I'm going to keep the background very brief. Very quick about us. So we are one of the two projects funded as part of the Secure program, the other being obviously Secure Analytics, which Kevin will talk about shortly. Our project is about co-design and creating solutions for this community. We've heard that word actually a few times this morning, which has been a pleasant surprise. I am going to use my time this morning to talk about 4 topics. I'm going to start with our mission and the leadership change, where we are today. Second is where we are today in building the National Clearinghouse for our stakeholder communities, including many of you in the audience today. I will also share our plans for what the rest of 2026 is going to bring, and then finally ways that you can partner with us. There are quite a few Secure Center people with us here in the room. Actually, could you raise your hands, because I know some of you have to go to give a Koger talk somewhere between this. So if you are with Secure Center, raise your hand. Okay, it seems very heavily weighted to this side of the room, but we got a couple folks scattered over there. Okay, so let's get started. So the NSF SECURE Center, our mission and leadership. In year 1, the focus of the project was really about standing it up and creating those 5 regional centers that Dr. Kaiser talked about this morning. And one of the reasons to have those 5 centers is to get that national coverage across the country, be able to build those relationships from coast to coast. We spent that first year as well developing initial products, many of which are on our website. We launched this shared virtual environment, the SVE, and also created a condensed training module, which I was in the workshop yesterday, and I think most of the hands in the room went up about the universities using that module, so that was incredibly gratifying to see. At the start of year 2, we had a director transition. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. And our focus really is on accelerating product development based on the community engagement we did in year 1, and then the continuing engagement we're doing with the community throughout year 2. The SECURE project is made up of, as I mentioned, 2 current agreements. So one with the University of Washington, one with A&M. This is a governance slide, and what you don't see here is a line between the 2 projects. But that's because it's not the cooperation between the 2 projects isn't about governance, it's functional. So Kevin and I work together in a variety of ways across the projects. He actually leads our Southwest Regional Center, and he is able to bring his very deep network to bear on our project, which is an incredible benefit for us. So reaching out to leaders in our field so we can build products based on y'all's knowledge. And the executive track that's happening at ASCE this year is a collaboration between Analytics and Secure Center. It's one of the first extensive projects that we're doing together. So Robert Nobles, who's one of our deputy directors, worked with Kevin to help put that together. We work together in a variety of other ways, having him on board with our project. So he wears many hats, as you know, but having him on board allows us to really integrate the SECURE program into ASCE like this. We will have actually many sessions throughout the conference. I hope we'll see many of you there. And then finally, he and I are actually working on on a research proposal together. So lots of collaboration between the two projects, which has been, I think, one of the highlights for me as I stepped into this role. So a little bit more about this center. So our vision: we protect America's research enterprise while preserving the openness that drives the U.S. innovation economy. So this is really the core of what motivates our work. We strengthen organizations' ability to safeguard intellectual property, maintain strong funding relationships, and collaborate effectively. And so that's sort of our vision of why we do what we do. And if you want to sort of know more about what we do, our specialists throughout this room, we work collaboratively with the research community to identify critical challenges and to co-design solutions that strengthen and safeguard the U.S. research enterprise. And we do this through a process called co-creation. We use co-creation stakeholder activities, CSAs. I feel like I have to have acronyms to fit in. So we work with IHEs to do CSAs, and soon we'll be working with SMBs and NPRIs. So if you have a background in technology design or qualitative research, you'll be familiar with many of the principles that underpin co-design. So it might sound like we have like a specialized vocabulary, but it's really drawing from things like participatory design, a focus on usability, principles that center the user and ensure that their needs are driving product design. So that's in our DNA. So we want to have solutions that are addressing the problems people really have rather than technology-driven solutions. And so then we use those techniques to deliver unified resources, training. We're building community infrastructure to really serve that research community across multiple stakeholder groups. So who are those stakeholder groups? Academics, small and medium businesses, nonprofit, research-performing institutions. So the IHE and NPRI stakeholders include both administrators as well as the researchers themselves. And those are two very disparate populations. And then for SMBs, we look at organizations that are receiving SBIRs and STTRs, but as well as any company that wants to protect its IP, which is basically any company, and companies that engage with the federal government maybe in terms of having contracts for selling, and then also just need to manage compliance. So the CSAs that I mentioned, those are led by the regional teams that we stood up in year one, and they will do CSAs with organizations that are sort of in their geographic catchment, if you will. But then we also do these CSAs at national conferences like this, and that's because we want to be able to get input from across the country on all of our products. And I do want to just sort of pause and sort of reflect on who we are as an entity. So Secure Center, we are actually able to operate differently than a company or a government agency. We have the ability to address both current needs and build the foundation for a strong and efficient response to what tomorrow's needs are going to be, the ones that we don't know about yet. We're able to strengthen connections among constituencies, and we utilize the expertise of people like all of you in the room to build those immediate solutions, right? What are the problems today? But we also keep an eye on the horizon, and we create tools that will respond to emerging threats. So we're building a long-term strategic vision around research security that will ensure the U.S. research engine that fuels our economy will continue to thrive. That's a lot of what we do. We actually have some principles and some values that guide the work that we do. You can read more about this on our website. But first, we seek to empower researchers, right? They are the front lines of research security. And we want to empower the people who are most impacted by security risks and the burdens of security policy, and help them, understand what this means for their research and the communities that they're part of. We want them to understand how to navigate the best path forward. We are also focused on minimizing burden. So as you know, increased regulation can lead to surges in work. I heard a lot about that yesterday at the Intro to Research Security workshop. new processes and responsibilities. And so it's our intention to provide tools and a space for discussion within that SVE on how to comply with these new regulations efficiently. This is especially important as things change, right? It is an emerging landscape, and we want to reduce that unnecessary administrative burden as much as we can. In so doing, our goal then is to really maintain the ability of organizations and researchers to navigate open and secure research. It's in the American tradition to champion scientific innovation, and that contributes to security as well as economic well-being in the country. And so we have to figure out how to navigate those challenges. It's hard. And finally, we believe in supporting strong collaborations, and this is, I think, sort of leveraging what Kevin's opening remark here about openness. Both domestic and international collaborations are essential for innovation, and any attempt to address complex shared challenges requires collaborations. So we aim to support U.S. researchers and institutions in maintaining those strong partnerships while navigating evolving research security considerations in ways that preserve openness, trust, and scientific progress. Okay, so that's all about the center. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. So I was told that I should spend some time talking about my role here. I feel like that's another elephant in the room, told. So I'm a professor of human-centered design and engineering. The previous director is actually a colleague of mine at the university. I have done extensive research, including work overseas, that would have benefited from research security practices. So you can actually think of me as a representative of the researcher constituency. When you, for example, maybe your faculty drive you crazy sometimes, you're a little frustrated by them, I'm a great representative. You can ask me why they're being so obstinate. I can represent that perspective. I know that we can be very difficult to work with sometimes. I have also spent, in terms of that international work, so it was in authoritarian regimes. So you can find me at a coffee break. You can ask me about the work I did in 2000 when I lived in Uzbekistan and then had a multi-year project in the stands in that region. So that was before any university that I worked at had a robust research security program, and I will say that there were a lot of challenges involved. So the benefit of this work is very clear to me. I've also spent a fair amount of time developing really innovative and non-traditional educational programs, which at its heart, that's what this clearinghouse is about. And then when it comes to that co-creation process, I'm actually a recognized scholar of co-creation processes and co-design. I've done that work across multiple disciplines. I've worked with all kinds of physicians and nurses, scientists, engineers, and I've done that actually all over the world as well. And then I have a lot of experience as well working with subject matter experts in many fields to sort of extract their knowledge, their expertise, and bake it into scalable systems. So as I engage with the research security experts who form the bulk of our team at Secure Center, it's my job to really just unlock their expertise and feed it into the products. So that's part of what I've done as an academic. I've been a professor for over 30 years. And then in addition, though, to being an academic, I also stepped out of the university for a few years, about a decade ago, and I started a company. So I'm a former CEO. I started a medical device company. It was not a spin-out from my academic lab, so we were on our own. With that company, we built a robust IP portfolio. We worked with both NIH and the Air Force through the SECURE Program, and we sold internationally. So we had to navigate all kinds of export controls and ITAR and all kinds of things like that. So I can also represent that perspective of the small and medium business and the challenges that they face, particularly as the smaller organizations. As part of that part of my career, I went through an incubator in Silicon Valley called Y Combinator. What that means is I'm pretty steeped in the culture of Silicon Valley, for better or for worse, but it also gives me an extensive SMB network, particularly companies working on key technology focus areas. And in addition, I work in venture capital. So I'm an investment partner in a very active seed stage fund. What that gives me, the perspective there, is I get to read their updates. So they send updates to their investors like every month or every quarter, and we get to see what are the challenges, what are the things that are really stalling small companies. And those are the places where we can really intervene, I think, and build solutions for them. And then obviously a lot of product development expertise both across hardware and software. So those are the perspectives that I'm bringing to this role as director while I work with this amazing team. I will say it's a pleasure to work with them all. So that's background. What I want to do now is I want to share with you some of what we're up to. So the NSF SECURE Center as a clearinghouse, where are we today? So as I mentioned earlier, because we are neither a company or a government agency, we can do some different things. We're translators. We think of ourselves, we work with multiple stakeholder organizations, and they're all equally important. So for us, if we're working with an IHE, if it's an emerging research institution that maybe can't afford expensive software, they're still our core users. We care deeply about them. We engage with them repeatedly. We have a mandate to become sustainable, and part of that sustainability plan is the slide that you see in front of you here, sort of building out 3 ways in which we provide information and tools to the community. So again, because of the nature of our work, some of it can happen in the open, and that's what the website is. The website's like our front door, it's like our front lawn. But some of it has to happen behind closed doors, so we think of that as sort of inside the house, and that's the shared virtual environment. That's what the SVE is about. We also have a series of events, so we do webinars and workshops and things like that. Today, right now, those are all public. So I'm going to walk you through some of the current products and services. I won't spend an equal amount of time on each of these because for many of these products, you'll have an opportunity in other sessions to do a deeper dive and also get feedback on them. So some of these products are in the SVE and some are on the website. And I will, as I talk through, I'll say what you can find where. Okay, so starting with the SVE. The SVE as a product, so it's a web app. Okay, and it was really built to address the desire for a space to engage and share research security information and resources across research organizations, so across IHEs as well as NPRs. And right now, what we've been doing is exploring forums where people can interact, sharing their names and their institutions, but then also eventually anonymous forums where more sensitive information can be shared. So as I mentioned, the SVE is kind of inside the house. The major parts of the web app, this is sort of what you see when you log in. I don't know how, it's not too bad. You can sort of see some of that. On the left nav bar, those are the major parts of the SVE. The Resource Center is the hub, and we've spent a significant amount of time, and when I say we, I mean this is led by Lori Schultz, who has now left the room. I can't call on her here. So Lori is driving an effort for us to build a strategy of how do we define trusted users. And what we're doing is we're balancing the need to respond quickly to what you all want with the need to have rigorous processes in place to ensure that we have a safe and secure, trusted environment. So we have an organizational access model. It's built on top of the AOR process. From a security standpoint, the SVE, actually, it doesn't require you to remember a password. I have strong feelings about passwords. One of the things I didn't say about my background is I spent a fair amount of time in I've never really figured out the right phrase for this, like the unofficial computer security research community, like DEF CON is sort of that world. So passwords, yeah, strong feelings there. But anyway, we do require 2 factors of authentication. So the first factor is something that you know. So we send a one-time code to the email that you use to register for the SVE. And then the second factor is something that you have. So we require you to use an authenticator app on a mobile device. So both those codes expire very quickly. That's how we do authentication. And we all know, I mean, I don't know if you had an iPhone update lately, if you're like me and you sort of can't figure out what anything is, it's very easy to get used to an interface, right? And either not see the things that are new, or then they interrupt your workflow. So one of the things that we've done here is we have a really prominent, as you log in, hey, here's what's new in the SVE to direct you to it so things don't get lost. If you look at the third thing there, under the list of what's new, the prototype, I'll talk about that in just a moment. And this is, again, the resource center. So, research security resources. Okay, so the SVE, that's one of the products, stood up at the end of year one, continuing to build out year two, pulling more products into it. We also offer a research security briefing. There's a few thousand people subscribed to this, so I'm gonna guess that some of you are in the room. The research security briefing is designed to provide timely information of different kinds of policy changes that are relevant to institutions. The research security briefing is something that we've chosen to make available actually in 3 ways. So you send it directly via email, you can get it off of our website, and then it's also within the SVE. This is what it looks like if you get it in your email. And if you go to the website, you can read the latest briefing. You can also choose to subscribe to the briefing. And then you can also read the previous briefings, so from throughout 2025 and into 2026. There's a lot of information in there, and one of the things that we're doing with our designers and our other experts is exploring how to extract the information there that's going to be useful that might be useful for our constituencies. So that's the briefing. And next, there's this big bucket of tools, resources, and frameworks. And these live either on the website or in the SVE. So if you go to our website, and if you've gone there over the past year, no, not year, past 5 months, maybe 4 months, and you've gone to resources and downloaded, those are some of our initial products. They're mostly flat PDFs, so they were the first things that we built in response to the challenges people told us they were having. And then what we've been doing over the subsequent 6-8 months is turning those flat PDFs into more interactive tools that are, again, responding to the feedback that we've gotten from the community. So I'm going to take you through a couple of these tools that are there. I'm going to spend the most amount of time talking about the risk assessment framework, and that's really to provide, I want to provide some transparency into what it means when we say we use co-creation and we do co-design. Actually, I do want to ask you, can you raise your hand if you've participated in one of our CSA activities? Okay, so my goal for next year is to have even more hands go up. So first I want to show you our risk matrix. This is one of the simplest tools that we have. This was developed by folks in the Midwest, and it's to address one of the ongoing challenges around harmonization, right? Harmonization, great goal. But we recognize that it's difficult for agencies to align themselves around risk tolerance, so there are some differences. And this is content that was developed and then reviewed internally by our subject matter experts, as well as externally by many of you. It's a very simple document so that we can update it easily, and so that we can do comparisons across documents, so you can see the things that have changed. I've heard a lot of anecdotes that as simple as this is, people love it, they print it out, they put it on the wall next to their desk, it's the kind of thing, it's a super helpful reference document. But now I want to tell you a little bit about our risk assessment framework. So this is a tool that the folks in the Southeast region have been working on. Deepika and David over there. So at the start of our project, so at the start of the Secure Center project, we did a big survey of research security professionals, about 300 people, and we said, okay, what's really hard? And then we prioritized those challenges. And risk assessment was one of the ones that came out on top. So we started looking at existing frameworks for doing risk assessment, to see what they did, what they didn't do, what some of the gaps might be. We also looked at some commercial tools as well as products that universities had developed for themselves. And we found that what didn't exist was a comprehensive set of questions and categories that would allow a research security professional to do a cohesive and diligent risk assessment review. So based on whatever topic, whether it was a visiting scholar issue, a travel issue, an IP issue. So we then did that flat PDF, right? And it was mostly like an FAQ. these are some example screenshots of the latest version of the risk assessment framework. So as I mentioned, it started off as a flat PDF, then we turned it into an interactive PDF. And from the interactive PDF, we did more co-creation activities where we engaged with the community. We ended up talking to 244 separate organizations with 366 participants over a total of 11 activities. So both those sort of CSAs that I mentioned, as well as some demos, and then a usability study. And through all of that feedback, all that work, we iterated on that interactive PDF, turning it into a web app. And we spent a lot of time on this question of triggers. So what kind of triggers did people want? So initially we had a bucket of triggers, but some of them weren't granular enough, some of them were too repetitive, so some got rolled up, some got unpacked. But this was an iterative process for us over the course of several months. And then what we have today now is this interactive web app that lives within the SVE. And I think when Lori and Jasmine do their session later today, they're going to lead you through the SVE. They'll look at a bunch of these tools, including this risk assessment framework, and part of the goal is to get your feedback. So as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time figuring out, do we have the right kinds of triggers? What we also learned is that the idea of customization was incredibly important to people. So one of the, I would say, like, where we're going to go next here is, so you fill out all this. We point you to tools. So all of those tools that are shaded green are open source tools. So we try to point you to both free tools that anybody at any institution can access, and then we do have some commercial tools as well, in case your organization does subscribe to them. And then the triggers that you end up selecting are all compiled into your own personal summary, and then you can use that as supporting documentation for the research security screening that you're doing. So there's more we're going to do. What comes next? As I mentioned, it doesn't let you add questions, so we're working on a dashboard where you can add the questions that you want to have, and you can have more of a bespoke experience. So eventually we'll have an API, which institutions can use so that you'll have sort of your own slice of the SVE, just for your institution. You can connect to the web app, and then it will be protected information. It will just be for your institution's use. And then you'll be able to do things like trend analyses about the kinds of risks that are popping up at your institution. So do you have a lot of collaborations with a certain country, or are you seeing some IP challenges come up a lot? And that can help your institution figure out, should we do additional training, and if so, on what topics? So being able to really do the sort of data analysis on the back end of how your institution is being affected by research security challenges. And then the other piece that I think actually Narcisa is going to talk about this in her session, is the way in which we're moving from this framework to thinking about a risk assessment program, which is going to include the risk assessment tool, an escalation pathway, a risk mitigation plan, a risk register. So putting it all together, again, responding to what the needs that institutions have told us that they have. So that's sort of how co-creation gives us a roadmap of what to build. We also have travel resources. These started out, again, as flat PDFs. You might have seen this off of our website. It's turned into more interactive tools, including a country awareness map. So with this tool, this one lives inside the SVE. So this you can get off our website. This is sort of behind the front door. This is behind the locked door of the house. And what you can do here, you can select the country that you want to know more about. It pulls from a variety of data sources. It tells you what data sources it's pulling from, and then it'll give you kind of a measure of a variety of things, including digital security, IP risk, etc. Next, we have forums. So the forums themselves, honestly, this has been one of the most requested features during our community engagement work. People have just said, look, there are resources out there, but they're very distributed, they're atomized, and they're really ad hoc. And a lot of it depends on personal networks. And so this is one of the things we're addressing with our forums. It's an opportunity to really provide measurable value as the landscape shifts. We are we have launched with a community forum that's open to any user in the SVE. So if you have the credentials to get into the SVE, then you have the credentials to get into our community forum. But we're going to have additional forums launching next month, which will be for specific audiences. So the two that are next on the docket, one is for research security professionals only. The next is going to be for participants in our mentorship program, which we'll talk about shortly. And then we also, I believe I mentioned this earlier, safe and secure dialogue. How do we support that? Tremendous amount of effort. Jasmine Campbell, seated over there, has been working on how do we actually create the mechanism to support that kind of dialogue in the system. And because of the complexity of things like Open Records Act in the state of Washington, it's a hard problem to solve. I think we're pretty far. Yeah, Jasmine, she's nodding her head. We've gotten pretty far down that path, and there's a few technical pieces which are, I think in March will be wrapped up, and so then we'll be able to launch an opportunity for truly anonymous conversation. This is what the forum looks like. Got some janky redacting going on in there, but you can see, you can post in a conversation. You can choose the tags for the topic of what the conversation is, so people know which conversations they are going to be most interested in. So, honestly, last century when I started my academic career, back before the internet had pictures, some of you might remember that, my first research thread was about online communication. So I'm especially excited about what the forum is going to be able to do for this community. So we also have training. I think many of you are aware of this. The training is something that we make available on our website. We want as many people as possible to benefit from it. Currently, what we have is the consolidated training module for research security. And there is, at least in one of the sessions, we're going to talk about what some of our future plans are about training. So next up is a refresher course, which I think is happening in the next quarter of this year. Is Lisa, are you still here? Lisa also has to go to the Koger session. Okay. So next quarter, we'll have that refresher training. I got a lot of questions about that yesterday at the session, too, so it's coming. And then we've also been exploring export controls, maybe related to imported materials, certain kinds of training modules. We have a recently redesigned website along with a calendar. I encourage you to go to the website, check out what we're offering to the community, sign up for things that might be interesting for you. Some of the things that we do different kinds of events like webinars, and then we also have workshops. And so I got my eye on time here. So in terms of the workshops and the educational offerings, our goal here is to really provide the research community with opportunities to ask questions, right? Ask questions, participate in collaborative activities, and also build that network with one another. Just last week, we launched the first webinar of our new series. So we did a bunch of sort of pilot webinars in town halls last year, got a good response. Based on that feedback, iterated, built out a more robust program. So Lori Schultz hosted a Research Security 101 webinar, and it provided some background. I will say the metrics on it, I'm going to brag on it a little bit, because especially Lori's out of the room, so I can't embarrass her. But she worked with Grace and Meg, who are over there as well, so maybe I can embarrass them a little bit, and Bree as well. But the NPS on that, if you know what a Net Promoter Score is 100%. It's kind of unheard of. The registration was capped at 300 because of technology issues, and they hit that cap, I think, like a week after advertising it. About 197 participants actually showed up, which is a great yield from 300 registrants. They all pretty much all stayed till the end. I think at the end of the Q&A, which went overtime, there were still 166 people online. So amazing feedback, really. If you know, we did a 5-point scale in terms of like really good, versus absolutely excellent. It was 100% down the line in terms of, did you learn a lot? Would you recommend this to a colleague? Really positive ratings. So we're excited about that. For those of you who know Lori Schultz, can't be much of a surprise. But these are the kinds of programs that we want to offer to the community. And then, so there's another Lori Hayes I don't know if she's still in the room. Okay. So Lori and I chatted during the break, and she was in the webinar, and she said, it would be great to have a version of that, but with more information. And I said, great. So you have to be careful. If you talk to me, I will give you work. So I said, I will send you the slides. Tell us where we should unpack and go deeper into these different topics. So we want that kind of feedback from the community so that we can expand and deliver even better programming. And these are just some screenshots from the webinar. So when she addressed NSPM 33, looking at some of the cases behind where we are today with research security, talking about compliance challenges, things like that. So it was a mostly information delivery, and then with a Q&A session recorded, the recording sent out. We'll be putting that recording on our YouTube channel. Actually, I think we already have it on our YouTube channel. We do. So that's some of what we've been doing over the last year. That's where our clearinghouse is today. Let me spend a little bit of time sharing with you what the rest of 2026 is going to bring for the center. We have a large team, and we are extremely focused on delivering results to you and to your communities. We want to enhance your ability to meet research security needs, which are evolving and complex. And one of the things that we've decided to do in order to accelerate that is to start piloting tools, to launch quickly and get feedback and then deliver iterated on even better results. And so that's a big theme for us in 2026, as well as reaching out more to SMBs. That might not be core for this audience, but I'm still going to talk about it a little bit because I think there's some interesting overlaps in terms of the needs. So in terms of pilots, I mentioned this earlier when I said, hey, under the what's new in the SVE. So this is a tool that was developed by Narcisa, who is right back there, okay? And there'll be a session where she'll address this later on. This was in response to people telling us they wanted a mechanism to share incidents that didn't get elevated to the point where they thought law enforcement should be involved, but they were still like, oh, this seems like it could be something. I wonder if other people are seeing this. And right now, other than calling your friends or your colleagues, it's very difficult to have that conversation. So this is a tool that was built, rapid prototyping. Eventually, it will be an anonymous tool. It is not currently an anonymous tool. We cannot guarantee anonymity. We message that all over this prototype. If you're in the SVE, I encourage you to go take a look at this. It's an opportunity to share information about incidents and then also see on the dashboard sort of what other things people are reporting. So this is what we want to do here. We're trying to collect data so that we can do trend analyses. We can share that data with the community. You can think of it as an early warning system for emergent threats. So it sort of walks you through the reporting process, and you can see those are different stages. And then you get to the last one, and then we sort of aggressively ask you for feedback. If you hate that, you can blame me. Someone was like, no, we have to make sure people know that we want their feedback on how the tool works. And as I mentioned, there's a dashboard where you can see what kinds of incidents are being reported or how many incidents, and then you can dig in and see what type they are. So that's one pilot. Another pilot that we're doing is a mentoring program. So that is Amy and Lee, who are back there, okay. And also Holly, who might be in the room. Over there, okay, great. So the mentoring program, this is, again, something we're really excited about. It's one of the pieces of feedback we've gotten most often from the community. It's very congruent with what people are looking for in the community forums. And this is, again, we were talking about building a program. We had lots of really great plans for a big mentoring program, and we said, wait a second, let's not wait 6 months to build out this program. Let's go ahead and launch a pilot now, see what we can learn from this first pilot, and then build a more robust, better program for the next cohort. So thank you to the 16 people who jumped in to be our early users. So we've got 8 mentoring pairs. That's going to be kicking off next week. And that is really an opportunity to strengthen professional development for members of the research security community. So knowledge sharing, collaboration, everyone who participates will have access to the SVE and will have the opportunity there to be building connections. We've also built this so that it provides value not just to the participants, mentors, and mentees, but also value to research institutions. And if you are very keen, go ahead, pull out your phone and scan that QR code. You can apply for session 2. So the first session is launching next week. And so I mentioned rapid prototyping for different kinds of community feedback. This is, we're going to increase our velocity. We have increased our velocity to create those community-driven solutions, but to iterate on them even more quickly than we have been. The landscape changes. We want to integrate those evolving user needs, and we also want to be able to scale those tools across stakeholder communities. Obviously, like everybody else, we're looking at AI. And so we're looking at some responsive AI-driven tools. One of my projects in the next month or so is to develop a responsible AI framework for the center and be transparent about that as well. Small and medium businesses, that's another focus for our 2026 efforts. So in terms of startup and SMB engagement, we spent year 1 really doing a deep dive into how do we vet companies? How do we know who the right company is to let into the SVE, to bring in, the front lawn is one thing, but once you bring them into the house, they're in the house. So we did that deep dive across small and medium businesses, and now we're doing direct engagement with startups. So we're doing that via tech transfer offices and then just reaching out directly to founders that are in the networks of the people that we work with. Some of the early needs that have come up in those conversations is around contracts. So CEOs spend a lot of time reviewing contracts, particularly in small companies where you don't have in-house legal and you don't always want to pay those outside lawyers to review every contract. So you're reviewing contracts all the time. But some of those clauses have implications for research security. It's not necessarily obvious to those people what those implications are. So they said, hey, can you build me a tool that will help me be smarter about my contracts and what to flag? They've also asked, can you help me be smarter about my IP strategy? So IP leakage happens in all kinds of ways. You'll see a lot of kind of fatalism about, if I manufacture overseas, I'm going to lose all my IP. But there are lots of ways that companies can lose their IP. And so they are eager for tools to help them with that. But there are also challenges. So one of the things we've learned is that the way that they prioritize their stakeholders is very different. Honestly, you talk to most CEOs about compliance, I think I can say this, and their framework is, look, if I can avoid it, I will. They are not eager to do compliance. They have to respond to their investors, they have to respond to their customers, they have to respond to their board. So we need to find ways to bake compliance into those stakeholder relationships and help them see how better compliance strengthens the bottom line of their company. The other thing that we've talked about is the briefing. So for those of you who get the briefing, there's a lot of great information in there, and we've been talking internally what kind of briefing would be useful for SMBs. Well, what we've heard from them is they don't really care about the policy updates. They just want to know what they have to do. What does this mean for my company today? And so we have the opportunity to build a bespoke version where we pull in the information of what those changes are from different government agencies. And if you've built a profile as a small company, then we can feed you, these are the action items that you need to take, and these are the dates by which you need to take it. And then we talked about, can we actually put it on a calendar, put it on their personal calendar. So there's lots of ways that we can do that, do things, sort of shorten the time frame for them to respond. And then emerging threats. If you've talked to me, you know that I'm sort of obsessed with the North Korean money laundering problem. Part of the reason I'm obsessed with that is I have heard from so many small companies who've had to deal with this. In fact, there's a startup that I've chatted with. They basically created a consulting arm of their company just to help other small companies deal with this because it's so prevalent. So that's 2026 for us, at least some of what we've got planned. And then finally, to wrap up here, I want to talk about ways that you can partner with the center. So partnerships are hugely important to us. There are ways that you can partner with us here at ASCE. You can attend the center sessions. But going forward, also, I'll show you some QR codes. There's ways that you can sign up for some of our products and also to participate in CSAs. We have a partnership with Analytics, as I mentioned earlier. We have building a partnership with Attain, who's here to deliver webinar content to their clients. We're building a partnership with Trusted CI. If you're not familiar with that project, that's another NSF project, cyber infrastructure. So they've been dealing with infrastructure primarily, but now their charge is to work with grantees writ large or institutions writ large around cyber infrastructure and cybersecurity, and this is a place where we can help disseminate, for example, the tools that they put together, leveraging that audience. We work with some of the ROARS awardees. So we are very excited to partner with people throughout the research security community. So I would say try out our pilots, sign up for our next mentoring batch. These are some of the sessions that are happening. This is today at 1:30. And that will be hosted by Deepika, Amanda, Lisa, and Lori about some of the tools. They'll walk you through a bunch of those tools that are in the SVE. And also today at 2:30, Lisa is going to be talking about the broader community and meeting their research security needs. So she'll talk about EERIs, MPRIs, SMBs, researchers themselves. She's been doing some really great CSA discovery activities, I think with Francis, who is probably in the room somewhere, Francis Hisgen, with researchers. Let's see, there is going to be a demonstration, review, and feedback session for the shared virtual environment. So if you've used the SVE, whether you love it or you hate it, come to that session, let us know why. And that's going to be done by Lori and Jasmine, so that is at 3:30 today. Also at 4:30, we have a design CSA that Narcisa will be doing about the Risk Intelligence Center and the Risk Dashboard. So come share with us some of your thoughts there. On Wednesday, we have a CSA led by Lee Stadler from Midwest with a bunch of other center folks helping out. And my guess is most of you know that people are the hardest part, right, of solving pretty much any problem. And so this CSA session is an opportunity for us to learn not just about the complex policy parts, but the complex people parts that you all experience in trying to develop and enact research security policies. So that's what that session is about. And then there's a joint session between Analytics and Secure on Wednesday at 3:30. And this is going to be a focus on analytics advisories and then the center's webinars. So I invite you to that one. And then finally on Thursday, Deepika is working with some people from the center and some people not associated with the center about a risk security assessment matrix. So there's some ways that you can engage with us. At your table, you may see a flyer like this. These will be in all the center sessions. There's some QR codes here of ways that you can sign up, and you can follow us on LinkedIn. I don't have a QR code to follow us on YouTube. I'm okay with that. Some mixed feelings about YouTube. But the one on the left there is our Connect form. So if you scan that QR code, you will get a form that looks like that. You can sign up for the briefing. You can say, hey, I want to participate in a CSA. You can send us feedback. There's all kinds of things that you can do there. And then finally, the people with the center are all wearing this badge. It says NSF SECURE Center, and so you can easily find us, and we encourage you to reach out. And we are always happy to hear any feedback that you have, and we look forward to the opportunity to partner with all of you. So with that, I'll wrap up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kolko. We have about 5 to 6 minutes for some Q&A. One of my colleagues in the back, Grace, if you can see these two here, and my fellow Willow Tree, Paul, if we could go grab those folks over there in the back too.
I'll start right here. Here you go.
Thank you. Here. My name is Binay Panda. I am a professor at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, one of India's largest public universities, and my lab works in genomics and AI. The question is about the API that you mentioned. If we are potentially starting a bunch of SDKs, can the APIs be available to us to mix and match and to modify it to suit the exact need that we have in our country?
That is a good question, and I would say we should connect offline to have that conversation more in depth because it's a complicated answer.
Thank you.
got one right here, Paul.
Hi, thanks so much for that. My name is Akshay from the University of British Columbia, based in Vancouver. I wanted to ask if some of the materials, like your newsletter, et cetera, are accessible to people outside of the United States. We have a similar community of practice in Canada. I think many people would be interested in signing up. How would we do that?
You would just go to our website and say, sign me up for the research security briefing. So we actually have subscribers from, we have many international subscribers currently to that briefing.
And for the SVE, is that limited to institutions in the United States?
Yeah, the SVE is currently limited, and that's the nature of our cooperative agreement with NSF and the funding mechanisms for this program. But as I mentioned, we do have a sustainability plan. And so I think what the center is today isn't necessarily what the center will be in 3 years. So again, I am happy to connect and have a more extended conversation about how our resources might be of use.
And perfect. We would love to share back with you as well, by the way. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Saw one hand in the back. One more over here, Grace. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Hugh. I'm formerly from the University of Indonesia. I guess my question is, actually, you are the relevant person for me to ask this. You mentioned that you have some experience working with authoritarian governments, some experience in that. You're also a former CEO, and so I assume that you know a lot about the top-down relationship between the state and also academic research in a lot of countries around the world. Not necessarily about China's civil military fusion, which is an explicit policy. For other countries, it's sort of like an unstated policy that, research usually tends to be directed for military purposes. But my question pertains about collaboration with foreign actors. So I saw the SVE tool that you demoed, which is actually kind of neat for compliance purposes. My work also handles strategic trade controls and research training in Southeast Asia. And what I see SVE is a tool that aggregates information across federal databases. It presumes the values of US policy as sort of like a universal aspect. But not every allied country share these values. In one of the pages, the slides, there's Saudi Arabia listed there in the State Travel Advisory. It's an example of it. The State Advisory level is level 2, as shown in the slide. And with that comes concerns about human rights. And even though probably the current administration doesn't really think that closely about human rights, it also has a spotty security record. I'm hoping nobody here is from Saudi Arabia, so I'm okay with saying that. But it's also a potential customer for F-35 stealth jets. And even though there may be some level of technological discrepancy between US and Saudi Arabian versions, there's still that level of research that, potential collaboration with Saudi Arabian scientists. So my question, with that wrong prelude, so how does NSF Secure accommodate, with the existing tools that it has, how does it accommodate for that kind of nuance, especially as, institutions are being trained to use SVE and these other tools, which I assume is meant to reduce friction in terms of compliance between research security and national policy. Especially since this is risk-based assessment, so I assume it's also proactive. Yeah, thank you. That's it.
So thank you. Okay, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not an employee of the U.S. government, right? So I'm the director of Secure Center. And I feel like I think there was actually more than one question in there that you were asking. And I'm going to but I want to try to respond to some of the big issues. So when I chose to put the values that underpin our project into this presentation because they're core to what we choose to build and then how we choose to build it. And the concerns that you raise are important and valid. So in that country awareness map, and Amanda's team is not here. Amanda got stuck in the blizzard. So I'm going to just sort of represent her for a little bit. The data sources for each of those ratings, if you click on them, it will tell you which data source it's pulling from to come to that assessment. You may disagree with some of those data sources, and that's okay. but we wanted to make it transparent which data sources are being used to make that assessment. Because I think people then have the ability to then go and say, do I think this data source is actually accurately representing the state of the world today? So that's one of the ways that we try to represent different perspectives on, or the different, different perspectives, I think, on data integrity. To one of your other questions, sort of where you started in introductory material, sort of in the challenges of working in authoritarian countries. So I spent 7 or 8 years doing research in Central Asia, and then I've worked in a bunch of other places too. And what I would say is, I am happy to engage with you as a sociologist and sort of share what I know about working with researchers. So, for example, when I started doing this work, my IRB cared about the respondents to my qualitative sociological work. They didn't at all care about my local researchers, but my local researchers were the ones who were most at risk, right? So that risk matrix that correlated to federal policy didn't actually capture risk to people on the ground. And so those kinds of disparities affect how I think about research. Just as a professor, it affects what I teach my PhD students. And I'm happy to have that conversation with you offline, but it's not as germane to the SVE right now because the SVE is focused for US researchers. And then the tools that we put on the website, or in US institutions, the tools that we put on the website, which are available to anyone, and that's very purposeful, I would actually be interested to hear any feedback you have of where those tools themselves might be on a collision course with different lived experiences in the world.
Dr. Kolko, thank you so much. I'm sorry we don't have any time for questions. Yes, clap.